Hello and welcome to the Inner. On this episode, I have with me Mark Meets Africa.
Hey y'all.
Hi, Mark.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me. I saw when you reached out on Instagram, I said, you know what? Pretty cool.
Yeah. So, if you could introduce yourself, tell the viewers a bit about yourself and what you do.
My name is Mark. I have a channel called Mark Meets Africa. And 3 years ago, I came to Tanzania. At the time, I was 19. And I've just been here building, trying to get us all together. Say, come on down to Africa.
That's cool. So, could you kind of like describe your journey? Like, how did you end up in Africa? How did you end up in Tanzania?
Yeah,
What prompted you to make that jump?
I'm gonna turn this light on, number one, because I can't see a dang thing in front of me. You better leave that in there too.
All right.
Yeah, that's way too. I'm sorry, that was way too much. And all I smelled was burning. You gonna see me running out of house fire in a minute. Okay.
All right,
To
Mark.
answer your question,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what brought me to Tanzania. Even 3 years later, I was just sitting in my house one day and I said, you know what? I think I want to go to Africa. And so I started looking, and surely enough, I first I looked at Ghana, and because there was a 2019 year of return, the year I left was like 2020, so it had just happened. But then I said, there's probably too many people there, and so I looked down, I looked at the Gambia, and then something told me don't go to the Gambia. It said look to the east. I looked to the east. I saw Kenya, and I said that looks too westernized, and surely underneath that was Tanzania. I've been here ever since, 3 years later.
That's cool. So, in America, we're taught certain things about Africa. Africa's portrayed a certain way in the United States. Um, how can, from actually being in Africa, um, what can you say is different concerning how Africa is portrayed versus what it's like actually being there?
Hmm. I'd say we have the stereotypical portrayal of Africa. Fortunately for me, I didn't adapt that because in my mind, it didn't make sense that a whole continent could be rid with, poverty strucken, hungry, fly on the face people. So I knew that that was here, but I didn't believe it was the main thing here. I knew there were cities here. The fact that I was going to the airport, I googled one picture of the city I'm in, Dar es Salaam. I said, "Oh, I know what's there," because I knew it was a city. So for me, it wasn't so hard to kind of deconstruct that mentality because I didn't have much of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say I didn't come with many expectations, so I came with an open enough mind that nothing. I mean, you get surprised by some things, but that's just culture shock. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I'd say for me, I didn't have too many, like I say, expectations. So I wasn't
All right.
too
So,
surprised.
what are some of the countries that you've traveled to while you've been in Africa?
For the most part, I've only really been in East Africa. I've gone to Zambia a few times. I've gone to Malawi a few times. I've gone to Uganda's coming up. Rwanda for a very short time. Kenya. Um, yeah, that's about it. I mostly am trying to finish what I started in Tanzania.
Yeah. And just from an insider perspective, what are some of those places like? I know you spent a lot of time in Tanzania. What are some of the good things and some of the bad things, some of the pros and some of the cons of living where you live?
Uh, I'd say, I guess I'll start with the good. It's definitely, I think I've been here so long at this point, it feels like I grew up here. I'd say there's good in every place. In terms of Tanzania specific good, it has a everybody looks like me, so that's good. You have a more laid back climate. Mm, even within Tanzania, there's different places to go. There's different regions. So I don't know, good and versus bad. It's just it is what it is. Some people like it, some people don't. The more I travel, the more I realize everywhere is for the most part the same. You know, Las Vegas isn't even that different from this city. A city's a city for the most part. You know, it may be missing a few things, but it has all the elements and aspects of a city. So when you say good and bad, I just think like, you know, it's getting harder and harder to answer that question with time. Because again, the more I'm stepping out and looking at places, the less I see a difference in places. Not to say there isn't a difference, you know, but there isn't much of a difference. People are people no matter where you go. Sometimes you get a little bit more of one mentality than another, but at the end of the day, same stuff, different place.
Yeah. So if you were talking to someone who was planning on moving over from the States to let's just say Tanzania, what would be some advice you would give them? What are some warnings you'd give them um, to help them get set up, or at least let them know what they're getting themselves into?
Okay. Advice. I'd say come with an open mind, do your research, and be patient. I think a lot of us come over here with expectations, and when we don't meet our expectations, we get disappointed, and some of us go back. Some of us stay, and then we lash out on the people here. And a lot of people here, I think, of people don't realize about Africans, all people, but mostly Africans that I've noticed, is they'll just reflect back whatever you give them. If you have a chip on your shoulder, they got a chip on both shoulders. So I think we have this sometimes, especially African Americans, as much as I love my brothers and sisters from the States, we are sometimes a bit high minded without even knowing it, and they will detect that, and you will have a terrible experience here. So be a little humble, come on over, enjoy yourself, be nice, have patience. Sometimes people aren't looking to get over on you, they just don't know. Most times they are, but you can't throw everyone in the category without actually having experienced them getting over on you just yet. So
Yeah.
that.
So let's talk economy a little bit. So financially, what's it like working over there? Like, how does the American dollar really translate to where you are?
I'd say $1 is 2,000, and it fluctuates, of course, but 2,300 shillings. Things are
Okay.
definitely becoming more expensive over here, as places do when more of us come on over. However, you know, also due to the global crisis, they say, um, of course, living is going to be a bit cheaper. Tanzania is not the cheapest country in Africa. It's definitely not the most expensive either. You can find apartments here from $17 a month. You might not want to live there, but all the way up to US price in some cases, especially with more of us coming and sort of not having any arrangement to be here. So we're picked off one by one and taken advantage of. The price might go up a bit, sometimes a lot. But because we don't come and unify, we're easy to choose and target. So that is an issue we face over here. Is you coming over here and you're not having a support system. That's what I'm trying to build over here. Me and people like me, you know, a support system, because we are one of the only groups of people that travels without having an actual group to associate with, legally registered group in that country waiting to welcome us. And so we get taken advantage of, which makes us even more bitter and angry. And then we go back, and now we don't like Africa, because that's the story I've heard from too many people. And unfortunately, a lot of people left. And a lot of those people never want to come back to Africa because they had such a terrible experience here.
That's interesting. Talk a bit more about some of the projects that you do out there. Like you said, being a support system. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I've got a company over here called Merge, and its goal is to kind of sort of be what I just described. We want to be a support system where people can come over here and they don't have to feel alone. Because if I'm being honest with you, I myself can probably live over here. I think a lot of people can come and adapt, but some people can't. And unfortunately, they are walking targets and they're just ATMs for some people. And not just the Africans. We have people that look like me and come from where I come from and where you come from, taking advantage of people coming over here because it's a new move. They don't know anybody here. So it's easy to target them. And you see people doing this all the time, every day. So one day I'm sitting down and I say, you know what, let me come up with something. Let me do my part to solve this problem. And I came up with Merge, which is essentially just, I'm actually in the building right now. You guys can't see it because it's just a wall. In fact, the wall matches my shirt. Interesting. But
Camouflage mark.
yeah, I'm just a floating head now. But let me go like this. But yeah, essentially we wanted to solve a problem, and that's about it. There's not much to say on it. I know my answers are a bit like but at this point, man, I'm trying to move on. I want to have merge in every country because I'm seeing this is not just an issue in Tanzania. A lot of people think, they ask me, I get emails all the time, which country should I go to? I said, man, what do you want out of your experience in Africa? Because what I'm finding out through phone calls and messages and emails from people is that no matter where they go in Africa, they run into the same problems, which means we must be the problem. Not to say we are a problem, but we are the problem in these situations and that we don't know how to live here.
Hmm. That's interesting. What are some of the more common problems that people run into?
Well, I guess common is a good way to describe some of these issues. Well, when you say common, what do you mean?
Um, Things that you hear reported back more than not.
Mm. I'd say land. A lot of people are buying land that does not exist. It's sad because it doesn't even seem like a scam. But every taxi driver knows where a gold mine is, or every taxi driver has an uncle that has a farm and they're looking for investment to make sure they produce something. So it's like that's the sort of stuff that gets you right before you get into the country. And this is not uncommon for, places outside of America, but I just wish people would realize that, you're in that taxi and this guy does this all day, every day. How many other people do you think he had that conversation with? How many other
Hmm.
people did he say $200 gets you 5 acres over here and my great great grandfather's? And those are the non-clever deceitful acts. There's more clever ones where you get here, you're here for a while. And I've had elderly people tell me that they're being held hostage. I just had that conversation with the lady today, and it sounds like it's straight out of a sitcom. She said, yeah, I'm being held hostage. They don't want me to leave because some people see the elderly people here coming alone. They're not married, they're widows, no support system. And so they'll seduce them because you have a lot of elderly people coming over here to get with younger men, as odd as that sounds. And they'll seduce them and then, marry them off and wait for them to die so they can take their money. This is something that
Hmm.
happens here. It's one of those dark, ugly truths. It's one of those things you wouldn't expect, but when you think about it, it doesn't not make sense.
Yeah. So, what would you say a healthy support system looks like?
A healthy support system is I can call you before I come. I can have assurance that there's going to be someone there to pick me up, take me to a hotel, or have something arranged for me, and have people of like mindedness come together and welcome me into a community. And that is a general picture, and it's a big thing. It's as general as it is a big thing because people are here without any support. Even the
Mm.
government will tell you if you ever go into the immigration office or the Office of Investment or the Ministry of Finance, They'll tell you straight up, we don't deal with individuals. What group are you a part of? And you tell them African American, and they say, okay, where is that registered? Is that a registered group? Oh, no. Okay, well, then go. You can't do anything here. So we come
Mm-hmm.
over here trying to be professional business people without a professional mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it doesn't work because our people sometimes have a crabs in a barrel mentality where we feel like we have to pull each other down or everybody's competing with one another. I'm angry. In fact, you and I just had this conversation
Yeah.
off camera. And it's like, I'm angry that you're doing the thing that I think I want to do, but I have no plans on doing until later. It's like, wait a
Mm-hmm.
second, what? We become very, very interesting people in regards to our actual issue.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's get into your head a little bit. Um, on a mass scale, what would you say would be the main problem that I guess we're dealing with in the States, we're dealing with in Africa, just a global issue? What would you say is, I guess, from your perspective, the number one issue that's keeping everybody down or keeping everyone separate?
Now, depending on your answer, I got two different answers, but I got to ask you, do you mean everybody in the world or everybody, with our complexion?
Just everybody in general.
Okay. Now, typically when you have an interview with a melanated person, they typically go into our people, their people sort of thing. So I had to confirm. And I'd say the biggest separator of people is definitely perceptual differences. So we think we're different. I'd say in America, it's definitely race, but outside of America, race is not a real concept. It's economic. You're
Yeah.
not my friend because you're broke. That's the mentality outside of America. And a lot of people don't understand that. So they come over here with the whole racism and white anti this and that. And these people have no concept. So they're looking at us like, whoa, what's wrong with those people? Why are they so angry? And so they get,
Mm-hmm.
distant from us. You have people over here saying African Americans are stupid. I've heard it so many times. They say, you people are stupid. Why would you chase the white man? Why would you? Because they don't see an issue with him. They say, what did he do to us? We have so much hatred and anger and bitterness in us that when we come over here, we try to push it onto them. And the
Mm-hmm.
imposition of will, when you impose your will on other people, you are no better than them. So that's that conqueror's mentality in a spiritual sense. Um, but in terms of the core value, the core of what I'm trying to say is, in my opinion, the biggest separator of people is hate, right? And that could be split into a million different things, but it's I don't like you for whatever reason, which sounds obvious, but we got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And what would you say would be a solution, or what are some solutions, maybe more than one, to help start to bridge that gap and get rid of that issue?
Eesh, that's a hard one. And again, you and I kind of spoke on the phone about this. So I think you know a bit about what I'm about to say. And I believe some wounds are
Yeah, go
fatal
for it.
wounds. Some things can't be healed. You just got to let it run its course. And hatred is one of those things that has to run its course. There's people that have been hurt in history, and history has treated certain people differently than others. And some people can't get over that. It's not to say that they're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to just wake up and get over it, but it's also not to say that they should do anything about it. But at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do, and they have every right to. So I say let it run its course.
Mm-hmm.
Out with the old, in with the new. I believe that there's going to be a mass awakening in two fronts. One is going to be the older generation embodying their hatred, and it's going to tip over in a boiling point. And the other is going to be the youth rising up and getting out of the mentality of I have to hate you and you're my enemy. And for things our ancestors went through. They say let the old blood go and let the new rise. What is it? Old things pass away, all things become new. Just
Mm-hmm.
I believe the only way to cure hatred is to just let it run its course, and
Let
of
it
course
die.
teach you to let it die. But it might die in a fiery, ugly way, but the world will still be here.
Yeah. That's a decent answer. Make sure that you're not a part of it while it's dying.
But you know what? I'd hardly call it that, because I don't even think you're a part of it. It's a part of you. It's either in
Mhm.
you or not. You know, some people call it
Yeah.
God, the universe, the nature of things, and everything has a nature. And some people by nature are hateful people. You know, that's why I say you
Mhm.
got to let it run its course. You can't control it. Some people are
Mm.
at the point where they can't control it. You and I spoke earlier about environment guiding people, and some people are completely controlled by their environment. And their environment
Yeah.
has been structured in a way to make them hateful, bitter, angry people, and they have zero control over that at this point. They look at the
Yeah.
snake and become the snake, and therefore they are the snake. You got to let the snake do what a snake does and eat its own tail.
Mhm. Yeah. Um just continuing with that conversation from earlier. Um it seems that one of the main solutions to a lot of this is just more of a conscious awareness of a more deeper or more inner reality, that when you live from the outside in, you corrupt the inside. And it seems that the only cure is to start living from the inside out, allowing the inside to actually process some things and uh, allow soul trauma to actually be healed instead of suppressed. Allow truth to actually come in instead of just what will get people to shut up the longest. Uh, but yeah, that living from the inside out versus outside in. Um, Along with that, what are some ways or some things that you've done to help stay mentally stable or consciously healthy?
Um, that's a good one. I think I end up living a pretty high stress lifestyle sometimes because I am trying to do something for people in terms of getting people together, having some sort of community. And
Hmm.
so it's hard for me to say I get away from people because in a normal scenario, I would get away from people. However, this is not a normal scenario. So I'd say, in terms of staying mentally stable, I just kind of sort of meditate daily. And it's not meditation in the sense of sitting with myself, but I will pace around and walk myself through my problems, or, you know, throughout the day, I'll say, what the heck was that? And I'll have to write it off as that was just a person, and people do that, you know? But
Yeah,
if you look too far into it, you're going to find something you don't want to see at the time.
yeah. So meditation. Let's go into that a little bit more. What does meditation really feel like for you? What does it look like for you? Just in a bit more detail.
For me specifically, I guess it manifests in various methods. It depends on the state of mind I'm in and the type of meditation I'm in need of. But I'd
Hmm.
like to believe when the time comes for me to need to meditate, the type is there as well. So sometimes I'll
Okay.
just walk around, I'll pace around this big table. You can't see it, but it's a big table here. Or I'll, you know, walk up and down the hallway. Sometimes I'll go to the rooftop, I'll walk around. Sometimes I used to go for walks, but I don't do that anymore. I think in terms of meditating, you need to be at peace. Sometimes that means getting away from people. It's a little hard to do in the middle of the city. I don't normally live in the city. For 3 years I've been here, I spent most of my time outside of the city because it's more peaceful. Not like I'm an introvert by any means, I'm not. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I do appreciate my alone time. Again, I'm in a stage right now where I can't really give myself that because I have people knocking on my gate every day, and I have people calling me every day, and I'm answering messages and emails. So that's me interacting with people's energy. But I'd say meditation for me looks like centering myself and going inwards, which means I have to focus on my energy, notice the little specks in it, and take them out as they come along. Um, Sometimes it's hard to do, like I say, when there's a lot of people around. But even if I'm sitting talking to somebody, I might doze in my mind and start meditating. Some people have a very heavy energy, and they put that on you sometimes, and they don't even know they're doing it. So you have
Hmm.
to kind of block that a little.
Yeah. So, would you equate your meditation time to your listening to God time, or would you say those are separate things that serve different purposes?
Well, I'd say they're the same thing. You know, you're never really alone. But you know,
Hmm.
in fact, if you want to bring up the God argument, I know we had discussed that as well. You know, they say if God is a father, then he wants a relationship with you. And the best way to build a
Hmm.
relationship with someone is to spend quality time with them. I'd like to think of time alone as time with God, you know, because you sit down and you have to think, unless you're a person who can be by yourself and not think, which is a bit odd. Some people will literally stare at a wall and there's no thoughts going through their mind. So,
Hmm.
which I can't even comprehend that. Some people are really like that. So, I'd say, yeah, the short answer is absolutely. I do believe that my time alone is my time with God.
Yeah. So let's dive a bit more into that. Like you said, that in order to engage God, or at least the method that you and I both propose, is to just have the conversation.
Yeah. I know we spoke about this. I'm going to keep saying, oh, we spoke about this off camera. Because we have long conversations apparently.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to address the fact that, you know, your relationship is unique to you and God. You know,
Yeah.
I believe it is so unique to you and God to the point where only you can experience it. You know, they talk about the narrow path. Well, the narrow path is only wide enough for one person to pass. It's you. And so you have to walk that
Hmm.
path. We have this strange mentality in our lives where we want to distract ourselves with things and other people. But, you know, a lot of us would solve most of our problems if we just got alone with ourselves in a room, in the woods, in nature, and wherever. Just be alone, go inwards, and have a conversation with God. But don't have the conversation in a way that's fake or artificial. Have the conversation as if you're having the conversation with yourself. You know, we spoke about this. Picture how you would want to talk to yourself. How do you want someone that you care about to speak to you? And then speak to God like that. And that'll be a better interaction. I think people don't get
Yeah.
results from prayer because they don't actually believe in the words coming out of their mouth. And the first step to actually getting a blessing is believing you're going to get a blessing. Why would I pray
Yeah.
to some being that's supposed to be supreme and not expect it to come to pass? He's not going to do it. The first step is no doubt. Stop doubting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that comes from having the relationship. It's hard to expect anything from a stranger. It's
Yeah.
a lot
Whew.
easier when it's someone you know.
Yeah.
Like you
It's like,
said, not having a support system. If God's our support system, you got to know him in order to expect stuff. You got to know somebody up there.
yeah, yeah. And you make a very good point. You can't just ask a stranger for something. You got to get to, and I mean, you can. And
They
let's say
might
God,
say yes.
he might, but if he's God, then he will. So he will say yes, he'll do all this, but, you know, it's not really fair to him. You know, we have to look at God the same way we look at ourselves. You know, if he loves us and wants us to love him, he's not going to force you to love him because he gave you the choice. But how do you think he's going to feel if he knows that this person is only around me when they want something? In our culture in the States, we call that a gold digger. Don't be a gold digger for God, you know, because he's going to feel bad just like you would. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so they go and make God feel bad constantly and then wonder why he goes silent.
It's interesting. Yeah, it seems like intimacy seems to be that barrier to help get rid of the doubt that causes us to fail in a lot of those instances. Is that if you're
Yeah.
having the conversation regular, when it's somebody that you're talking to on a regular basis, excluding God, just in general, when it's somebody that you know and you talk to them regularly and y'all are in good relationship with one another, it's a lot easier to expect things from them. It's a lot easier. You don't feel as guilty for asking for a favor or asking them to show you how to do something. um it's 50-50 when you're dealing with a stranger. Maybe they say
Yeah.
yes, maybe they say no, but they don't have a reason to say yes. No
But you
reason
know
they
what?
should. They don't know you.
But I think now we have to put it in a way that's practical for most people. Because you understand that
Yeah.
concept and I understand that concept. But I think for most
Yeah.
people, they don't even know where to start. I say for me, whether you want to call it the Holy Spirit or God, but God has two forms in my mind, and He manifests as
Mm.
either one depending on what I need. He could be a father or
Okay.
a friend, and so whatever you need, not necessarily what you want, but what you need, because sometimes the devil is what you want, God is what you need. So you have to be aware of what you need and then go and envision that, and that will become God. Sometimes we have to
Mm.
personify God so that we can have a visual of Him. If you're a visual thinker, then you need a visual to speak to. So for me, I
Hmm.
visualize God, you know, I channel that energy and I'll visualize Him so that I can speak to Him like I'm speaking to you. If
Yeah.
I need some guidance from a friend, I'll visualize a friend. And you just, you know,
Yeah. In similar fashion, that's how I started practicing that. Just having the conversation was the same way I talk to anyone. It's like talking on the phone.
Mhm.
Is that I don't necessarily see the person I'm talking to, but I'm expecting a response. It's a dialogue, which means it's not just me talking. I'm expecting a response. We're going to go somewhere we didn't necessarily start.
Yeah,
Um, Conversations like that really don't have an end. You just pick up where you left off. It's like, all
yeah,
right, now back to what we were talking about before, and it just goes on and on.
as long as you
Um,
let it.
and that's how simple it can really be, is just choosing to have that conversation.
Yeah. And you said it right.
Visualization, I believe in also.
Yeah. But you do have to make the choice. Because God ain't going to force you.
Yeah.
If it's forced, it's not God. That's how you know you're dealing with the devil, is when it feels like forced. Because God will make you understand, He'll help you to understand, and then you have to choose. But you always know what to, even me, I find myself in situations where I'm questioning if I know what the right answer is. And then I say, I know what the right answer is. The question is, do I want to choose it? And the answer is usually yes,
Hmm.
because it's not difficult to choose it, you know?
Hmm.
But that's after you speak to him a little more. You get to know his characteristics. He's like a person. How do you get to know a person? Spend more time with him, talk to him, ask him questions, get to know him. I'll ask God some silly questions too, because he's not just,
Those are the
a
best
perfect.
ones.
Yeah, that's how you get to know him as a friend or as a father with actual, human characteristics. If you put him as this, big scary deity that, no, it's not a good thing to see, because it's not good for you to understand him as that. He doesn't want to be
Yeah.
known as that. He wants to be a loving, happy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Shoot, even the scripture says they that sit in heaven laugh, which means even they're painting heavenly beings as joyful to be around, and religion's painting them as as Zeus, just someone ready to strike.
Yeah, they personify the worst in them. But you know what? Yeah, we got to realize they even say "as it is in heaven," which is a reference to this world is not that different from up there. It's just a different set of laws. But the same characteristics of mankind exist up there. Of course, not so much the
Yeah.
evil ones, but the characteristics of joy and happiness and humor, all things good. We sometimes think that God is this strict being that wants to control us. That is literally the devil.
Hmm.
If it feels forced, it ain't God. And a lot of people need to wake up and understand that. But we live in a system,
Yeah.
in a world that is designed to force you into making decisions or make it so that you don't think for yourself, which is essentially controlling you. I say the first sin, the sin of pride, we had this conversation as well off camera. But the first sin,
Hmm.
the sin of pride, is a desire to impose your will on another, right? And a lot of people have that. You have the alphabet groups, and then you have the gun rights, and and you can name any issue. I don't even care which one. It's, I want you to do what I do. And the other
Hmm.
side says, well, I don't want to. Well, to me, the side that's pushing is wrong. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't push things onto people because that is anti-God. So we're meant to
Yeah, it's
believe, well,
anti-love.
first. No, you were wrong because you should have let them do them. And if you believe in God, like most religious people, right? And I'm specifying religion because I believe in relationship, but this is the hypocrisy in religion. I believe in God, so by nature I know or I understand his nature enough to know that he would never force himself onto somebody. So what do? I force my beliefs onto somebody. Well, don't you see what you just did? And in the book, it doesn't tell you that. It tells you that the wages of sin is death. It doesn't tell you what sin. So that means all sin is equal in the eyes of God. Of course, we know some are worse than others, but in the eyes of God, sin is sin. So, I mean, people say, oh, but it's not as bad as murder. Well, you still forced your will on another. So, in a way, you're just as bad. But we have that hypocrisy where we don't want to look at it practically because we're so emotional in what we believe that everybody has to believe it. I can't talk to Nelson if he doesn't believe in flying monkeys. I don't like him because he doesn't believe in that. So now it's like I've just thrown the whole person away.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. Think as I think. That is not okay. Because God would never do that. God would never say, hey, Mark, hey, Nelson, could you guys, in order for me to love you, you have to do these things. Wait,
Yeah.
what? No, he'll love you regardless. Your personal relationship with God, you're going to find out that this being will love you no matter what you do. He only
Yeah.
wants to see the best in you. He only wants to see the best for you. But we have a way of
Yeah.
self-sabotaging ourselves to a point of actually missing this very obvious thing. We think God is like, we think we're slick as I don't know which generation says that, but we think we're slick. Like God doesn't see that you aren't genuine in how you speak or how you move or what you say or how you behave. And we think we're getting away
Yeah.
with it because, nobody's forcing us to not do it. But God wants you to make the choice. Like any person that has a relationship with you, they want you to choose them. Because if they force you to love them, then they have to question forever, does this person love me? Because they love you. Now, if they
Mm.
didn't care about you, they wouldn't care. They'd say, I don't care if this person loves me. They're doing what I want.
Mm-hmm.
God ain't like that. God is not a being of force. He would never force you to do
Yeah.
anything you don't want to do. He won't even force
Yeah.
you to do anything you want to do. Pure choice.
Yeah. He won't even make you listen to you.
You won't.
Because that was the first thing. Free will is him. The reason he gave us free will, and I've heard a lot of people question, well, why does God give free will? It's because you can't love without it. Love can't
Yeah.
be forced. Love is a conscious decision. So his love, while it's a constant for all of us, like that was something I was gonna bring up while you were talking, is just that our changing, our acts, our actions, the way that we behave, our behavior, all of that stuff isn't the prerequisite for knowing God. It's the symptom.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reaction we have to being around God is that we start to be like him, because that's the same way it is in any other relationship, is that you become like who you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that in order to get to God, you have to go through these steps as it's been taught. It's you start spending time with God first and see who you become.
Yeah.
You'll become a person who's gentle, who's loving, who's caring, who's helpful, who's respectful, who's all of these other qualities that we can call God, we start to find in ourselves the more we spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less of, oh, you need to, in order to get closer to God, you got to start being more loving. You got to start being more compassionate. It's like, no, go spend time with God. That'll make sure that you're actually compassionate. Other than that, you just get some nice people in a religion. They may be helpful, but they're still empty.
Yeah. A lot of
They're
people are
still
empty.
lost.
Mhm. Some of them walk with the devil and they don't know it. Because
Yeah.
again, like you said, God has these characteristics. The devil has characteristics too. If you get around people and they're
Mm-hmm.
just angry all the time, they're bitter, they're hateful, you can be like that and not technically be evil, but you have characteristics of the other father, the devil. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have these characteristics. We know that they're the majority on this earth, but still, everybody's away thinking they think they're walking with God and they're not. They walking with a whole nother being. And it ain't God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's just not.
Yeah. Like God's always worked with the minority group. Like that's where the word remnant comes from that people love to use. It's the minority group, the empowered minority group.
And you
In
know
every
what?
civilization, it's the minority that sets the culture,
Yeah.
sets the
But
course of history. Yeah.
even still, I feel like God looks for wills that he can work with. Because again,
Yeah.
because of God's ability not to, or because of God's decision not to force himself on others, he has to find people that are at least a little bit open to listening, and he'll whisper in their ear. He'll give them a ping of
Yeah.
inspiration, and hopefully that'll spark their desire to know more. Of course, that's not the majority,
Yeah.
like you said. I believe,
Yeah.
because the devil can force his will on others, he's got a lot more children than God does.
Yeah. Cause like one of my favorite, or more so a popular quote by Catherine Kuhlman, she would always say, God's not looking for golden vessels or silver vessels, just willing vessels. People
Yeah,
that'll listen, people
yeah,
that'll allow themselves to follow God's will.
yeah.
Whoever's willing is who God works with.
And that's it.
If you don't
And
want
a
to
lot
do
of,
it, someone will eventually say yes.
yeah, God is like a door to door salesman. And he wants you to open your
Yeah.
door to him. But a lot of people open their door to the devil. But keep in mind, it's still a choice. You do have to let the devil in, just like you got to let God in.
Yeah. Neither of them are honestly that forceful. They're just different levels of suggestive and seductive, if I can use that word. It's
Yeah,
influence. It's an attempt. It's a question. They're asking for permission, like you said. I believe you use like a vampire analogy, and that they go to the
yeah,
door and they gotta ask in order to enter.
yeah. But you know what? This is the thing about the devil. He won't knock on your door as a big scary demon or a monster because then you wouldn't open the door. If you have, let's say, an affection towards beautiful women, he might send 10 women to your door and seven of them are the devil. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
devil gives you what you want. Not to say God won't give you what you want because he sure will. But the
Mm-hmm.
devil is most likely to try to tempt you with what you want. So a lot of people think that what they want is a sign of God. Sometimes what they want is not. We have to be honest with ourselves. You know, the devil feeds on your insecurities and desires. See, God wants to go through your, desire for more. I don't know how to put it. I think you can probably, my mind is a little worn out from the day.
So let's see. Um, I didn't get to ask you about this. Backing up from this a little bit, talk a little bit about your childhood. What was your upbringing like? Your parents,
Oh,
siblings?
Uh, I don't typically talk too much about my family. Um, okay, I don't see why not. I don't think I don't, that's a hard one. I don't talk about my upbringing very much. I'd like to think that it was pretty simple. It was normal for the most part. I didn't do a whole lot
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of people. I didn't have, a super close relationship with, my parents and things like that. But it wasn't like anybody had issues with anybody. We were just kind of neutral about everything.
Yeah.
I wasn't raised in a household that was about black empowerment, but we did understand the struggle of our people. And
Mm-hmm.
there was no real extremes in any direction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think has actually allowed me to be more balanced than a lot of people in my age group. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think I did have older parents because I'm adopted. But still, I don't know. There's not much to say on it, to
Yeah.
be honest with
Well,
you. Because when you say upbringing, I say I'm still in my upbringing, you
yeah.
know?
I was just more saying because I remember you mentioned behind the scenes that your dad was like a big inspiration for you. Like you were pretty much cultivated in a way where you were inspired to think, but you weren't necessarily indoctrinated.
No, yeah. I mean, we were like a church going household. So that's a form of indoctrination. It just
Yeah.
didn't get on me. It didn't
Yeah.
stick because I didn't get it. I said, wait a second now. This book is saying some stuff and then it's saying some other stuff. But I went with the program. I have a
Yeah.
brother, he turned out a bit different. So part of me moves towards the nature versus nurture argument. And I
Yeah.
say it's a bit of both. Some of us think it's your environment that shapes you, and some of us think it's just how you are. I think it's
Yeah.
a mix, but I really do believe, the how you are part shines through later in life. Because right now I'm realizing some stuff is just how you are.
Yeah. So I'll ask this just before we get ready to close. What would be some advice you would give to specifically this time the more melanated community?
That's a hard one. Because to be honest with you, good advice is applicable to everyone. But I guess if I had to tailor it towards us, I'd say get to know yourself. I think the biggest problem in the Black community, if you want to call it that, globally,
Hmm.
is an identity crisis. We don't seem
Hmm.
to know ourselves very well. You have Africans wearing other people's hair, doing other people's thing, and essentially chasing someone else. Whether we know it or not, everything we do is to compete with that individual that has hurt us in the past.
Hmm.
No, I'm not going to say move on from the trauma or anything like that, because I do believe that there is valid concern.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will say get to know yourself and find a peaceful resolve. I wish I could give more in depth advice. I got a whole channel about advice for
Yeah.
Black folks. So, you know, I
Yeah.
don't know. Is there anything in particular? I know we talked about
That was a
a
good
lot of things.
answer.
Well, we
Because
gotta have
it's
this in the daytime when the sun is shining. Y'all don't
yeah.
know. Just so I can tell the audience. I have. Oof, it was a long day, y'all. Whew. That's all I'm gonna say. But what do you
Yeah.
think? I'm sorry to kind of turn the question around on you, but what do you think? What's some advice you
All
would
right.
give Melanie?
So I call it it's a few things, right? So I'd say first, acknowledge that what happened has happened. Acknowledge that what's happening is happening. Feel how you feel about it, grieve how you need to grieve, and then begin to start working on solutions in communities. The government ain't gonna do it. It's got to be the community. Start to educate yourselves. Go beyond what American education will do for you, or wherever you may be, their education system might do for you. Educate yourselves, learn to heal yourself, learn to help yourselves. Um, Partner together as much as possible to build communities, to look out for one another. That would be my advice. Like I tell people that are planning on staying in the United States that the best thing you could do is partner together with people that you like and you get along with and buy some land and live together, grow your own food, take care of each other, protect one another, raise your families together, teach each other. So that you can raise up some people that will be more beneficial to society in general rather than responsive, rather than harmful to the environment. People that are self-sufficient, they're coming with things to offer rather than things that they need given to them. Apart from, like you were saying, actual things that have happened. I believe that's where the reconstruction starts, is when we actually get along, we get together, we help each other, and we begin to grow from there. not ignoring what has happened, not ignoring what still can happen today, because people still get lynched in the United States. But working to make sure that that's less and less, and that we're not contributing to our own downfall. That would be my advice.
Now that's a good answer.
I got a video coming out. Well, by the time this video come out, it'll be out. But I'm editing it today. But yeah, let's see. We got a few minutes left. You got any closing thoughts? Anything you want to leave with the people for them to meditate on, get them thinking, maybe inspire a few people?
As messed up as this is gonna say, no. I'd say everything in the video is something to meditate on. It really is what you take from it.
Yeah. In other words, Mark said, watch this video and watch it over and over again. Get
Till
something
you
out
get
of it each time.
If you can watch it and get nothing out of it, you got to look a little deeper. I'd say, yeah, look into things deeper. You know, people are looking for spiritual things and spiritual signs, but just, you know, the world is what you make it. That's all I got to say. As general and cliche as that sounds.
Meditation creates.
Manifestation.
Yeah. Well, Mark, where are some places that people can connect with you?
I'm sorry?
Where are some places that people can connect with you? Do you just have YouTube, or what are some places where people can connect with you, the platforms that you use?
I would say definitely check out YouTube. I'm not, as crazy as this is going to sound, I'm not super adept in social media at this point. I say I'm kind of running around what I'm trying to get done over here just for the time being. So I'd say check out the YouTube, get to know me a little better. I don't always seem this kind of low energy. You'll see that if you watch my channel. But Mark Meets Africa, I appreciate you having me on. We have great conversations off of camera, y'all.
Yeah. Well, it's been great having you. Well, that'll be it for this episode of The Inner. Y'all be blessed. Thank you.
Peace.